1 2 1 2. We're on. Hey everyone, how's it going? She's been a while, but I'm back. So I'm going to pick up my podcast series again. I kind of stopped, as you know. I did stop doing them for, well, basically because of work. I had to get a job, and it's kind of weird because as a musician, artiste, you tend to spend a lot of time sort of staring into space, contemplating the nature of life, the universe, and everything. And you are always working, because you turn that into your art, into your music, or whatever it is you do. But then you're basically, what I found was I became a very inefficient time manager of myself, and I didn't have the time. And then I had to get used to a whole new way of being too, because I had to I had to get used to different hours. The job that I have is all different hours. I can be at work at 6 in the morning, or don't have to go into 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Sometimes you don't finish at 12. Sometimes you don't finish at 2 in the afternoon. So you're kind of all over the place. Whereas me, before, I was a late riser, and I would stay up late. I rarely went to bed before 2 a.m. and I would get up a little later in the day, maybe 9 or 10. Now I have to get up at like 5 or 6. And it kind of fucked me up a bit, but I think I've gotten used to it now. So I feel like I'm good to go with these podcasts again. I'm not going to do the video version. I'm going to stick a version up on YouTube, but it's not going to be setting up videos and all that, because it's too much effort. And I don't have the time for that. I might get back to that eventually, but for now, I'm just going to be doing this audio version. I hope that's okay for you. Thank you for all the kind messages. I did get lots of them, and people telling me they were glad that I was getting back to it. And pardon me, and they missed my insights, which is kind of cool. I like that. I like that I offer insights. I thought it was just a fucking half-wit waffling, but no, apparently not. So yeah, so there we go. So it's been an interesting 3 months for me. Got this job just before Christmas and shit. And it's good. I don't mind it. But one of the things I wanted to talk about, and I mean, basically I'm a delivery driver. That's what I do. And I'm what would have been called during the COVID times an essential worker now. So, but now that seems all to be over, they can go back to treating you like shit. And I'm not going to slag them off too. Well, no, I am going to slag them off, because listen, basically it's one of the big 4 supermarkets. That's who I drive for, and they're fucking horrible. They're really horrible. The people that I work with are fucking amazing. I absolutely love them. They're the best people in the world. They're conscientious. They care about what they do, which, and I'm going to get to this, and this is the main thrust of what I'm going to be talking about today. So, Marx talks about the alienation of the worker, how the worker becomes disconnected from the efforts of his labour. You see, so this is one of the things Marx teaches us this, tells us this, and the capitalists know it, and it's actually dialed into the system of capitalism. So when the worker was removed from the land to fuel, to provide the manpower for the Industrial Revolution, going to work in factories and things like that, to make the machines that make the machines, the worker becomes disconnected. So he becomes first of all disconnected from the profits of his labour. Then, as a part of that, he becomes disconnected from the labour itself. So what that means is he doesn't care about what he does. Now, that's a dehumanizing thing to happen to a person, because as human beings, we're designed to care about everything that we do, and we can't. And if we go to our labour every day and we are disconnected from it, we are then dehumanized and dehumanizing ourselves by doing it. But we have to do it because the system is set up that we need to earn a living. So one of the things that I've noticed in my new job is the only way I can do it without getting annoyed, because I can see within the system that the company themselves don't give a shit, right? And they're reliant on workers caring a lot. For example, I finished my last shift yesterday and I was home for 10:30. At 11 o'clock, one of the managers was texting me. Now, he was looking at me to come in today, which I couldn't do because I'm going for a meal with my wife and my dear friends Richie and Lisa. First time I've been out with them in months, and I'm really looking forward to it. So I said, sorry, no, I can't do it. Normally I would, but I said I can't do it. Now, that man should be sitting at home with his, no doubt, adoring wife and kids maybe in bed, and having a glass of wine or doing whatever it is, watching a movie, or instead he's texting me. Now, he's not getting paid, right? But when I see the reason that he's doing that, and I know the reasons why, it's because the corporation doesn't give a shit. The profits are rolling in. And that got me thinking last night. I came home in a bit of whenever I was annoyed for him, and I was annoyed at the company. I was annoyed at the I'm always annoyed at capitalists anyway, but I was annoyed. I was going, why is that man doing that? He shouldn't do that. Not because I mind him contacting me. I actually don't. And normally, if he did, as I said, if he did contact me saying, can you come in and do an extra shift, I would do it. But it got me thinking about Marx and socialism and the reliance of the corporation on that man cares about what he does, but the corporation knows that he cares about what he does, and they're reliant on that. And the reason that they're at the place I'm working in, they're all running around the mad funk at the minute because there's not enough employees. The reason there's not enough employees is because when people leave, they don't replace them immediately. They sort of let them build up to a critical mass and then employ them as a block all at once. So there's 14 new people starting this week. But that means there's 14 people short, minimum, who've all left and not been replaced as they've left. Then what happens is these managers and these other workers then are running around the mad scramble trying to make up the extra slack. Or pick up the slack and make up that extra work, which they do. And they get the ball over the line every day. Every day is crisis. It is an absolute fucking mess over there at the minute. But and then this guy is sending out messages trying to get people to come in for extra shifts at 11 o'clock on a Saturday night. And the corporation know that. I remember having a thing, I was talking to my friend Pete, and another a great socialist and a trade union activist, Bird and Battle Damage. I was talking to him a few months ago. I said to Pete one time, I said, somebody in an office has put an X value on compassion. So that a nurse goes to work or a doctor goes to work in a understaffed, stupidly busy hospital, working themselves to death, not for the money, but because of it's not the money that keeps them coming in. It's their humanity. It's their compassion. And some fucker, without a doubt, has put a value on that. I'm absolutely 100% certain that there's an X value on compassion. So this person gets paid this amount of money, and this will get them to come into work up until this point. Then there's their humanity and their compassion, and that will get them an extra bit. And somebody's figured out a calculation. I know it for a fact. I'm 100% certain that that's a fact. And that's extra profit for these companies. And that's what the people that I'm working for have done as well. I've absolutely no doubt that that's what they do. They rely on it, because if everybody did just their job and no more, that place would be closed down. It's a breaking point at the minute. But these men and women, and they're lovely people, and I'm very, 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 very fond of them. They seem to be the sweetest people in the world, and they're working themselves around the clock, and they seem to be doing it with a smile on their face, which fair fucking play to them. But the answer is simple: just employ more people. And then the second part of the solution is, after you've employed them, pay them more so they don't leave. Everybody's getting paid minimum wage, or minimum wage plus a few pence. Do you know what I mean? And then you won't build to these crises. Crises? What's the plural for crisis? Crises? You know, so it's just, and it got me thinking about Marx and what he teaches us about this, the degree. And so this is my point. So I'm watching all this, and I'm having to go, you know what, the only way that I can not get annoyed about this is to not give a fuck. But that's not in my nature, and it's not in human nature. And that's what got me thinking about Marxism, about Marx and what he teaches. And I said to Jeannie last night, she says, but that's not you. You can't be like that. You can't not care. I said, this is exactly my point. This is why it's the alienation of the worker, the separation of the worker from his labour and from his profits, the profits of the labour. So some fucker sitting in a New York penthouse is going to get a fucking check, a share dividend, for doing nothing. But it's me that gets up at 6 o'clock in the morning. It's this other guy who I won't mention by name, that's sitting texting me at 11 o'clock at night, trying to get me to come in for an extra shift. And again, as I said, I don't mind. I was only in the door myself, so I was only in from work, so it was okay. And I'm happy to take his messages any time of day or night, but only because it's him, not because it's the corporation. The corporation can fuck off. I'm not grateful to them for giving me a job, because I know they get extra value for my work. This is what the employer-employee relationship, that's what you need to understand this. As soon as you become an employee, you need to understand that you have entered an exploitative relationship. You negotiate your pay. Richard Wolff talks about this a lot, the economist, the socialist economist, the American socialist economist, talks about this all the time. Check him out. When you sit down with your employer and you negotiate your pay, you know immediately that your employer's making a profit. So you now enter an exploitative relationship, because that gap between your wages and the employer's profit, that bit is the exploitation. The employer needs that. Employer takes that, based on your labour and your labour exclusively. I know, I'm not, again, won't mention the person, and this person knows that they generate £1,000 a day for the corporation, for the company, but they get paid much less than that. As he said, he understands that there's other parts of the business that don't generate income. They cleaners have to clean and people have to do things that don't actually make any money. But nonetheless, the gap is still huge. And at the end of the day, someone is going to sit and get a dividend check for doing nothing. They don't do the work. You do the work. I do the work. I'm the one that sets my alarm at 6 a.m. to get up, to drag my ass out of bed, force feed myself, force a poo out of myself. Sorry, I don't mean to be gross. In order to get into work for 7 o'clock. And then some asshole somewhere in the world is going to get a check through their door for doing nothing based on my labour and nothing else. And that's wrong. So then people say, well, what should we do? Is the person not allowed to invest? Is the person should they're the person that set the business up? Fuck them. They come up with a good idea. The business needs to go to the workers. The workers need to own the business. And they say, well, no one's going to come up with a good idea ever again. Yes, that's right, because no one ever came up with a good idea before capitalism. There's no doubt about it. The rate of growth that we've had within the 400 years of capitalism has been extraordinary. But we're talking about a system, it's a square peg into a round hole. A system that, on a planet with finite resources, our economic system requires eternal growth. I mean, this just clearly is insanity. It just doesn't, it's never going to work. And that, by the way, whenever I realised that when I was a young man, that's whenever I realised that I didn't actually realise I was a socialist until many years after I was a socialist. I didn't know the right language to use, and, but that was what happened with me. That's whenever I sort of went, well, hold on a minute, this doesn't work. This clearly can't work. It's never going to work. That simple realization led me down the path that I'm on. But so, what do you do with someone that comes up with a great idea? We can figure this out. Give them a golden handshake, and offer them a fucking job. The workers that work in the company should own the business. The workers will decide what to do with the profits. I tell you what the workers won't do. They won't vote themselves out of a job. They won't send their manufacturing to China, as has happened all over the Western world. All over the world. In order to do what? To increase revenues for non-productive shareholders. That's all this is. That's all it is. That's what it's all about. And it relies on the labour of workers. It relies on the alienization of workers. It relies on the dehumanising of workers. It relies on the separation of workers from their labour and from the profits from their labour. You shouldn't be glad because you have a minimum wage job. You should be fucking furious. Furious that you've got a minimum wage job, because you can be paid more. I know I can be paid more because I know the billionaires that own Asda are taking a profit. Because they get a check in the post every year. The company I work for, a few short years ago, although the figures are out of date, but a few short years ago, the company I work for, their employees were the biggest recipients of tax credits in the UK. In 2015, I looked this up, the employees of the company I work for received £221 million in tax credits, because the company that they were working for wasn't paying them enough to live on, so the government makes up the shortfall. Meanwhile, the same company is not paying tax, not paying as much tax as they should be, and they're paying their non-productive shareholders dividends. Now, I think that's fucking outrageous. Those dividends should be clearly going to the workers. The workers should own the business. They can run the business. They can pay themselves a fair wage. They're CEOs. can be paid, and you do have all these things within the cooperative movement. You have these positions, you have directors, you have CEOs, you have all these positions, but they're not being paid 700 times more than the cleaner. You go to a board meeting, you go to a meeting, and the workers vote, and the guy that runs the place, the girl that runs the place, will be paid 8, 9, 10 times more than the lowest paid employee. So if he or she wants a pay rise, everybody else has to get a fucking pay rise. But all the workers decide, and if they say no, it doesn't happen. That's the end of it. There are many great examples of cooperatives, which are a fantastic business model. One of the biggest is in Spain, the Mondragon cooperative. Check them out. I think they're the third biggest corporation in Spain. And they employ hundreds of thousands of people across many different sectors. And the head of that cooperative gets paid something like 10 times the lowest paid worker in the business. But that's still a lot of money. This is the whole point. Whenever you listen to capitalists, or I've actually never had an argument with a capitalist because I've never really met one. Because a capitalist is people that own the capital, so I don't move in those circles, so I don't get a chance to talk about it with those people. Whenever I say capitalist, whenever you say capitalist, what you're talking about is a capitalist bootlick, someone that's defending the landlord, and they say that one of the arguments that they always give is why should they not take as much money as they want from this free market? It's a free market economy. No, it's not. This is the whole point. It's all rigged in favour of the already wealthy. We've seen this at the minute. We're going through a cost of living crisis. The price of gas, electricity, diesel, petrol, heating oil, you name it, coal even, gone through the fucking roof. Our heating bill at home here has doubled. We actually ran out of oil. We couldn't believe it, because we put the same amount of money into the tank at the same time of every year, and it never got us through the winter. We had to go through another hundreds and hundreds of pounds at it, which thank God I had. But we're going through this cost of living crisis. But why are we going through this cost of living crisis? Because the capitalists are putting the prices up. It's not because there's a shortage. It's quite simple. How do we know? Because all these companies have announced record profits, which are going to who? Shareholders. Sitting on their asses doing fuck all. They're not doing the work. They're not going out and digging the coal out of the mines, or building the oil rigs, or building the gas pipeline, driving the truck to deliver it into your tank, putting a bag of coal on your back, carrying it up someone's driveway. They're not doing that. They're doing nothing. Sitting on their asses doing nothing. Being paid. And what are they're being paid because of your fucking labour. End of story. That's it. This is why, and it's one of the things that infuriates. Once you cross a sort of a threshold in your mind, you sort of get yourself deprogrammed, and you start to realise your labour is everything. There's nothing without it. There is nothing. You withdraw your labour, the world shuts down. At the minute in Canada, you may have heard about these trucker protests. These trucker protests are being portrayed in the press as being right-wing. Sorry, I'm just opening a little bottle of fizzy water here. Being right-wing. This is a workers' protest. Now, I saw a photograph of a protester at this protest, and he was waving a Nazi flag. That was a fucking plant. The remember the Canadian Secret Service or police or whoever it is that exists in Canada, you don't go to these things waving Nazi, like, and there was one guy waving Nazi flags unless you want to discredit the protest. The protests are peaceful, no violence. There's been no violence. They've blocked bridges. They've blocked access to the border. They're protesting against the mandates to get vaccinated. Now, I don't want to get into the whole vaccination thing. I'm all vaccinated and everything, but I think the time for it is over. But you can't mandate, you can't make people get vaccinated, especially now. Right? That's my opinion. These guys are sitting in a truck cab by themselves all day. They're not mass spreaders of disease, but they were essential workers a short year ago and being praised by the same Justin Trudeau, who is nothing but a World Economic Forum stooge, by the way. And these protesters are now being attacked by the cops. They're being called everything from Nazis to anti-Semites, all the usual shit. And why have the forces of the Canadian government come down? And by the way, they've stopped cancelled their insurance in their trucks. They've shut down their bank accounts. They've got money from GoFundMe that was being given to them to keep the protests going was all cancelled. They never got it. They're being attacked at every level by the state. And if these sorts of things was happening in China, we'd be looking at China and going, "Oh, fucking China, and pesky communists, that authoritarianism of those ways." You'd be saying. But no, it's happening in Canada. Nice, smiley, happy, friendly, liberal Canada. Why are they going after the truckers so vehemently? I'll tell you why. Because the truckers have targeted the money. They've shut down parts of the economy. End of story. They went after the economy. And the Liberal government came after them like a bunch of fascists. And the leader of the protests spent, I believe, yesterday was in jail. He's been charged with anything. The cops are attacking them. They're not fighting back. It's because they went after the money. The truckers know their value. They know they're workers. And this is what infuriates me about us as workers in general. You withdraw your labour, boom, it's over. You can get everything you want. Now, these truckers are being attacked. It's not going down well. It is not going down well. Now, and this is the other thing as well. If anybody comes at me, I'm going to say this. Some of these truckers are right wing. Some of these truckers are left wing. Some of these truckers are no wing. They don't care. True. This is a working class protest, and I support it because it's workers doing it. And they understand, and they are an example of the importance and of the importance of labour. The ruling class know, but the working class don't. I'm just a shelf stacker. I'm just a street sweeper. Fuck off. You're a worker, and you're not on your own. There are billions of you. And this is the point. Get into your union. Stand together. That's what the truckers have done, and that's why they're being attacked so badly. And it's not over yet, but I don't think this is going to end well for the Canadian government. I think it seems to me that this isn't going down well. We'll see as time goes by. But anyway, I've kind of strayed there, as is my wont. But again, another big the biggest protest in history, which I'm going to guess you've never heard about it. In India last year, the past year or something or so, the biggest every farmer in India went on strike. Millions and millions of farmers on strike. Brought the country to a standstill for months at a time. And they ended up getting what they wanted. And what they were protesting against was the big corporations like Monsanto and all these things. And these, they call them Frankenstein suicide seeds. They plant seeds and then these plants don't make new seeds, which is what farmers have always done. And then these farmers end up in a debt trap where they have to go to the corporation every year and the Indian government, which is very right wing, was trying to force this legislation through, which forced these farmers to fall into this trap. They recognised it for what it was. They did it for years. A lot of the suicide rates among some of India's farmers was staggeringly high, and eventually they had enough and they couldn't take it anymore, and they went on strike and they won. Took a long time, and it wasn't without its costs, but they won their battle. So yeah, so there we go. There's my little thing about. Don't know what that was actually. It started with someone sent me a text message last night, 11 o'clock, and about 10 minutes later, I decided I was going to start my podcast again. If you look at my Twitter feed, you'll see that. So, I'm going to read a story to you, if you'll indulge me. This is particular to me here in Lurgan, living on the shores of Loch Ness as I do. And now I don't know if you know this. So, Loch Ness is the biggest freshwater lake in Western Europe. Okay? And a beautiful, bejeweled part of the world it is. Now, it provides us with fresh water around here, and it should be providing us with much more, but it's being overfished. It's also one of the prime places to get eels. So eels migrate there every year from the Sargasso Sea, I believe, and then they make it all the way across, and then they spawn in the loch and all this. And so I was raised catching eels and eating eels and all the lovely things. But it's very heavily licensed, and the loch is overfished. There's also there's also a fish unique to Loch Ness called pullen, which we don't eat, and you don't get them anymore. Like when I was a kid, they used to be quite big, and they'd be lovely meaty fish, and you don't get them like that anymore. They're very too small, and if you do happen to get one, they sort of flake apart. They're just not as. But so there's lots of environmental concerns with the loch. It's been overfished. It's also dredged for sand. Emerson's, the building company around. Oh, you'll see there all the way around the loch. They've got various yards set up, and they dredge for sand. And I don't know if there's a limit on how much sand they're allowed to pull out of the loch, but all environmental groups have called for the loch to be to basically to have a hiatus on. I'd like to see everyone stop on it myself for a while to get it back to a healthier state, and then we can talk about what we're going to do with it after that. But this is the thing, we don't own it. The people of Northern Ireland, I guess, don't own it. It's owned by the estate of Lord Shaftesbury. Shaftesbury Estate, it's called. Who doesn't live here, has never lived here. His ancestors don't live here. They've never lived here. They're absentee landlords. They collect a rent for everything that goes on in the loch. basically feudalism. The definition of feudalism, actually. He doesn't do anything. He does again. It's a bit like It's exactly like the shareholder sitting in a New York penthouse getting a check based on my labour or your labour. This is exactly the same, but it's worse. So here's an article from so this is a wee quick article, but it's just telling you about what's going on. So the freshwater loch owned by the Shaftesbury Estate, it's a major tourist attraction with many visiting the loch. Okay, it's not as big a tourist attraction as it could be. I always thought it was very devoid of leisure boats. So let me get this right here. So they're calling for Shaftesbury Estate to sell the loch to the government for a pound. It's a nominal thing. So the Waterways Ireland can come on board and manage this waterway, because Shaftesbury collects his levies, his rents, his fees, everything. Every pound of sand that gets left out of the loch, he gets a percentage of that. Every eel that gets sold, every fish that gets sold, he gets a percentage of that. Every license that gets bought to do these things, he gets a percentage of that. But he doesn't do any maintenance. He's a classic absentee landlord, does fuck all. So, like many waterways, Loch Ness has suffered environmental issues over the past 20 years at an alarming rate. This includes the impact of zebra mussels, which filter the water and increase weed growth, especially in the marina bed areas. At present, there is no known treatment for zebra mussels. These are an invasive species. So somebody brought a boat from I think it was fucking New Zealand, I heard. And it obviously had one of these critters attached to it, and that was the end of it. So now they're in the loch and there's nothing we can do about it. And he can't do anything. He's not going to do anything about it. So this causes weed growth in the marina areas that would not normally happen. And so there's that there. So that's a brief synopsis, such as poor as it was. This is the point of what I'm going to tell you. 4 men accused of stealing sand from Loch Ness belonging to the Earl of Shaftesbury are set to fight the charge. That sentence makes me fucking puke. That's awful. That's terrible. Break out the guillotine. The 4 from Tyrone, including 3 in their 70s, are accused of stealing sand worth £1,920 belonging to the Earl of Shaftesbury Estate of Loch Ness Limited in October 2019. Coal Island men John Quinn, Joseph Quinn, Seamus Quinn, Emmett Quinn, they all face a single charge of theft. During a brief hearing in the case in Coleraine Courthouse, Defence Counsel told Judge Philip Gilpin the men are set to contest the charges at trial later this year. The lawyer said the defence had requested disclosure of the title or deed documents from the Crown relating to the ownership of land which may feature in the case. Judge Gilpin adjourned the matter for review. Set a provisional trial date for October 10. Oh, let me just have a little... Sorry, bear with me. Oh no, this is this year. Okay. I thought this maybe was out of date, because I only became made aware of this yesterday. But yeah, this is current. So, Loch Ness is owned by the Ashley Cooper family, the current head of which is Nicholas Ashley Cooper, the 12th Earl of Shaftesbury. The 42-year-old is one of the directors of the Shaftesbury estate of Loch Ness, along with his mother, Christina Eva Ashley Cooper, the Dowager Countess of Shaftesbury. Fuck these cunts. The 42-year-old, a former shareholder in the company was Charles Palmer Tompkinson, the father of the TV presenter and socialite Tara Palmer Tompkinson. It has long been dredged for sand, and one of the company's purposes is to oversee the operation of sand and gravel pits at the loch. The continued removal of sand from the loch, the largest freshwater lake in the UK, has prompted fierce criticism from politicians and environmental campaigners. In 2020, Infrastructure Minister Nicola Mullen reapproved the planning permission for dredging, saying it was a finely balanced decision. But James Orr of Friends of the Earth said it was a major blow to the environmental integrity of the loch and the political integrity of the planning system. Green Party leader Claire Bailey, the dredging of sand in the loch is thought to have a devastating impact on the entire ecosystem because it's very sandy, by the way. So that's the end of the article. So those boys are going to end up in court on October. Yes, October the 10th. Provisional trial date for October the 10th. And I don't know. They stole sand from the loch. You know, it's such a bizarre statement. But they stole the property of the Earl of Shaftesbury's estate, who doesn't live here, hasn't lived here, doesn't manage the loch, does nothing. Again, these fucking vampires, shareholders, sitting, extracting wealth, in this case from nature and from the labour of the people that do the fishing, that dredge for the sand. It makes me fucking puke. It really does. So, listen, I'm gonna call this. This is me done. Yeah, about 40 minutes. That's not bad. So, I wanted to give you a little update on, as you know, I should have started with this really. The Bonnevilles, we were on tour. We just got back off our first tour in over 2 years, which was great. We did a UK tour. That was the original. That originally was planned for April 2020, and the last tour we did was December 2019. So then that tour was rescheduled like 4 or 5 times, but we got there eventually. We went with Mudlow, our friends Mudlow. Unfortunately, Paulie from the band there was a COVID outbreak in the Mudlow camp, but they couldn't play the last 4 dates, which was very sad. So yeah, the tour was fucking great. It was great to be back on the road again with Chris, and Audrey came with us and did the Audrey Extraordinary, did the merch for us, and it was just brilliant. So I was sort of a wee bit. I thought that was me done, to be honest. This whole COVID, I thought that it's over. I can't go backwards. But I'm sort of determined to get back to it again. So on that note, I suppose I can let you know. It's rather exciting. We've decided that Audrey's coming on board as our tour manager proper, and she's also going to come. We're going to. She's going to be running Motor Sounds Records for us, which is our management label of the band that we use. We've used it from time to time. We used it at the start to get us off the ground. We put out our first album on Good Suits and Fighting Boots on Motor Sounds, and that sort of got us off and running. Well, Audrey's going to come on board and we're going to be running that, and we're going to be looking for synchronizations and all that. So I'm going to be making an announcement about that properly, press release and everything, in probably next week. So we're busy squirreling away in the background, getting that all up and running, which is great. And also we got contacted. This was great. While we were just before we were heading off on the road, like a French director, film director. Turns out he's a huge fan. He contacted us and he said, "I'm going to be getting in touch with you." The next day I get a phone call from the music supervisor, and they want to use some of our music for a BBC drama, which is fantastic. And this is cool because they mentioned the Bonnevilles in the script. And they sent us the little bit of the script where one of the characters actually says, "Oh, not the Bonnevilles again," and one of them's putting it on the character. "Do you not like the Bonnevilles?" And she says, "Well, yeah, I do, but not 8 hours a day. So that's kind of cute, I thought. So I think they're going to be using No Law and Lurgan and Hell. So in order for us to get that done, we had to sign with a publishing firm. So we signed with Centric, which we've worked with in the past, and they're very good. So they're going to be our publisher, and we're going to be seeking more synchronizations, and that's all going to be a part of the Motor Sounds Records thing. So that's kind of cool, isn't it? Yeah, so that's good. And also the next tour we've got is going to be we're a Scandinavian tour, but it's not going to be until October. So we're going to be doing all of them. So all of the Scandies, Finland, Sweden, Denmark, and Norway. So that's cool. We haven't played Sweden and we haven't played Denmark. We have played Helsinki once, and it was a fantastic gig. And we played Norway lots. It's always good. So yeah, it's going to be good. I'm looking forward to that. That's very exciting. So yeah, so listen, that's me. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Ukraine thing and Russia. That just stinks of fucking bullshit to me. But I'll get into it maybe the next one, provided that we're all just not a bunch of fucking burned to ashes, a bunch of skeletons, which we're not going to be. It's not going to happen. I'm not really worried about it. Yeah, so I kind of wanted to touch on that, but it's so big. I think I should maybe just dedicate an episode to it. So there we go. Listen, it's nice to be back. I'm going to be knocking these out. It's going to be... I don't think it's going to be as regular as I would like, but I'll try. Because of the way that my router works. It's not the same router all the time. That's another fucking thing about the corporations. You're all over the fucking place. Like my Irish language class on Thursday night, I can't go to it every week. And I don't know from one week to the next whether I'm going to be able to do it or not. You know, you're up and down, you're in fucking bullshit. So there we go. Done. By the way, I will say this. I do like my job. It's actually fun. I love meeting people. I'm enjoying it very much. I get to talk to people. I get to pat all these doggos all the time. Every second house has got a class wee dog, and you get to play with them for a few minutes before you head off. So there's lots of nice elements to it. So I don't want to sound like I'm having a miserable time. I'm not. But that's not because of the fucking corporation. That's because of me and the awesome workers that I'm working with. The awesome people that I'm working with. So, I'm going to call this. Thanks for bearing with me. Please like, share, subscribe. Do the whole fucking thing. I want to try and get the numbers up again. I'm going to have to build this again for about the fucking fourth time, I reckon. So, but you can help me with that, please. Share, subscribe, do the whole thing. Tell the people about it. And, yeah, okay. I'm going to call it.